Good evening, pilots and mercs. Today we're going to be having a look at Battletech Why Do We Love SRMs by Mechanical Frog. Now, if you've seen any of my streams, you'll know I absolutely love SRMs. I do have a habit of brawling a lot of mechs in my time at Solaris, so with that, grab your snacks, grab your drinks, let's roll the film. Battletech, why do we love SRMs?
With just a simple squeeze of the trigger, the short-range missiles daisy-chained across the ridge shook as the contents of the firing tubes were throttled out into the bitterly cold winter air. The convoy of light vehicles and the accompanying Wolfhound battlemech had no time to react, as half of the missiles slammed into armor plate and soft vehicle aluminum with their high explosive payloads. Anyone looking uphill from these vehicles might have...
I love how Mechanical Frog is explaining the SRM bit. But what I'm more distracted by is why the footage is so jittery when it comes to the forest here.
Felt lucky to escape the fiery explosions for a half second before the other missiles broke apart in midair, spreading out their gelled fuel in a cone shape in front of them. It covered vehicles, the road, and the bottom half of the Wolfhound. A second later, the gel ignited. I had to shield my eyes and turn away from the light and intense heat, ducking back into the snow-filled foxhole. The rest of the unit and I crouched down and prayed that we would not hear the approaching feet of the battlemech. Thankfully, we did not hear anything but the sounds of ammunition cooking off in the flames. I covered my ears. I hoped I would not hear any screaming. Private Carrie Lee, IPIS Planetary Defense Force, Regiment C3, Draconis Combine. Short-range missiles have secured...
That sounds like the Inferno SRMs. And if you don't know, Inferno SRMs used to be some of my favorite. I hate them now. Mostly because they do overheat the enemy mech, and in this case, they will basically light the entire mech on fire and either overheat the mech or just completely cook it and its pilot inside like an oven. Unfortunately, it tends to overheat your mech as well, depending upon what iteration of the game you're playing. And I tend to run quite a few of them, so my eyes, it was just better to just delete the cockpit instead of trying to roast it to death. And I do love how he has coffee up here in his cockpit.
A reputation for effective brutality across the inner sphere. It's a reputation earned through countless battles, desperate last-ditch stands, and even in front of cheering crowds.
I love how this Incubus here just did not notice him whatsoever. He just kind of walked up and was like, tap, tap, hey, buddy, receive the gift of SRM 6s, about 4 of them. Not gonna lie, this is a type of build I would have. Although I would probably put, you see, here's the problem. I tend to go a little overkill with my mechs. I don't necessarily make them heat neutral, which is more of a standard I should go for. I'm at the stage where I'm just like, oh, overheating is fine. I'm starting to get closer to trying to get it heat neutral at this point. I am getting a little better in the mech lab. This one seems to be a bit better on that
Solaris 7. Of all of the weapons of the 31st and 32nd centuries, the SRM has come the closest to nullifying the advantages that battlemechs have had over all other battlefield combatants.
Really lucky on that
Warfare
front.
has always been impacted by the ebb and flow of technology, and even back in the relatively primitive days of the 20th and 21st centuries, a single soldier with a shoulder-launched missile could change the balance of power in the field by taking out a tank, bunker, or even an airplane. The SRM that we know, love, and can be found across the inner sphere and beyond is just the latest, more refined version of this ebb and flow.
You know, it's funny that he mentions that because this is a mod that I'm referring to in the iteration that I'm familiar with, but in the Dismount Mech mod for MechWarrior 5, you can get an SRM. You can be outfitted with an SRM weapon. I wonder how true that is for regular infantry. Because in that case, it might be more efficient just to field like an entire regiment or entire platoons or battalions of infantry sometimes for the like tabletop. Again, this is a little bit more abstract because I have little to no idea. I'm used to Brawls and Mech Warrior, and that's about it. Right, so seeing this perspective is a little bit more interesting.
Of course, it's up to the historians to decide if it was more ebb or more flow. In a process similar to the LRM's standardization and miniaturization process, the SRM became a battlefield standard shortly after its introduction in 23.
I love the Stalker. 85 tons of missile goodness. I haven't really had a chance to field this thing that often. If you watched some of the streams yesterday, we did end up fielding this thing for like the first time in quite a while. I used the standard loadout, and it was actually pretty decent. Mech Warrior 2 is a little bit fickle with this thing, but still a really good mech.
365. The scientists and engineers of the Terran hegemony saw the value in maximizing explosive power in situations when attacks were at a short enough range.
Also, I dig the 3 PPC build here.
And advanced guidance systems were unnecessary. What resulted was a direct fire missile system that could cause significant damage to a target, needing less fuel and no guidance systems, or very limited ones at best. The overwhelming majority of the missile could be devoted to explosive power. Standard SRM systems come in 2, 4, and 6 missile packs and are very flexible in types of ammunition that they can fire and can benefit from advanced fire control systems like the Artemis. Due to their short range, only up to 9 hexes, and lacking a complex targeting system, SRMs cannot be used for indirect fire. On the bright side, there's no minimum range on the Inner Sphere SRM like with the LRM, so you can feel free to get up in personal with your target and let those missiles fly.
Hello, that would be me. I always love just shoving the thing into minimum range and just absolutely wrecking a mech. What's interesting is I wonder which types of ammo are available throughout the Inner Sphere at this particular time. I would say throughout the Succession War, not necessarily. I would say before the clan invasion, because you do have your Inferno, but I've also heard of Magnet Pulse, and I think there was another one, but I forget off the top of my head. But I used to say the Artemis system wasn't necessarily that great for SRMs. And again, that's more from the tabletop side of things, or not from the tabletop, video game side of things. Because it's like, you can get them to bundle together, but when you're within 50 meters of the mech anyways for each trigger pull, it doesn't really matter at that point because anything in front of you is about to get absolutely shredded. I will say, though, for the tabletop side of things, I would definitely be mistaken on that front because you can, I think it goes from, you roll like 2d6 for damage for SRMs. I could be wrong on that one. But I think with Artemis, you roll at advantage, if I remember correctly. But essentially, the grouping is better, so you get a better chance to hit.
The standard damage for the SRM is 2, which is twice what you get out of an LRM. That's sometimes forgotten at first glance, as I know there are quite a few people who are not fans of those SRM2s. 1 ton of equipment with 50 shots per ton of ammo, 2 heat, and with either 2 or 4 damage on a hit. It's not super awesome, but it's not too shabby either, considering you're looking at 5 damage on a medium laser with 3 heat for 1 ton of investment. If you needed to keep your heat down and only had a few more tons to invest into weapons, the SRM2 is not that big of a downgrade from the medium laser. Plus,
so I haven't really messed around with the SRM2 to give my opinion on it. I think the low heat kind of helps. I've always just kind of been like, I feel like it works better on the smaller mechs because, again, little heat, not enough space to really do much with it. So it kind of helps on that front. But, like, I don't think I've really experienced, I don't think I have enough experience with them to kind of give judgment on them. I don't know. I feel like if you wanted to make a heat neutral SRM build, the SRM2s could be a way to go. I might need to mess around with them in the mech lab for a little bit more. A little bit more knowledge on that one.
You can consider those other ammo types. Give it a go next time you build a mech. Who knows, you might become an SRM convert. Not ones to be idle, the Terran Hegemony introduced the Streak version of the SRM2 in 2647 as a way to conserve ammunition. The Streak SRMs have a target lock override, which will prevent the missiles from launching if there is not a hard target lock in place. Once launched, the missiles will be guaranteed to hit their target. In various MechWarrior and Battletech games, the Streak missiles actively hunt down their targets like the proverbial heat-seeking missile. That must mean that the Streak SRM missiles themselves are different than the original, which explains why the ammo cannot be swapped around and shared. I think we're talking about those guidance systems that I mentioned before. The clans understood the value of the Streak SRM, and not only designed the Streak SRM4 and SRM6 launchers, but also improved upon their weight and reduced the size of the launcher. The Draconis Combine would end up also developing the Streak SRM4s and 6s, and the technology would spread throughout the Inner Sphere. One interesting note concerning Streak SRMs is that they didn't end up replacing SRMs as kind of a battlefield standard. In fact, across the Inner Sphere and the clans, standard SRMs are still quite popular. Some suggest that mech warriors are unwilling to hand over control over whether or not their missiles fire when a single missile hitting could make the difference between life and death.
I don't know. I have experience with Streak SRM systems. I just never really experimented with it too much because it never quite made it into a lot of my builds. I have a little bit of experience with it when it came to the Victor, one of the newer versions of the Victor. I wouldn't really see myself piloting a normal Victor, or like, I think it was more the Succession War era Victor, mostly because the AC-20 is in the right arm, and as we all know, arm-mounted cannons are usually not the best. I usually prefer them sticking out of the torso, because if you've already destroyed my torso, you've probably gotten through my mech anyways, so it's like, at some point, something went wrong and I need to rethink my strategy. But for the Victor, it's like, you can just pop off the arm and then I basically become a, 60-ton mech with, at best, medium weight battle mech armaments, because I maybe have a small laser, medium laser, maybe an SRM4 on a very heavily armored mech, which I suppose is fine for heat management, but there again, I just lost my AC-20, so I don't know. The fact that you can lock on with the Streak SRM missiles are cool. I just, again, haven't looked too far into it. I just kind of went, SRMs are cool, went with those and try to see what I could build off of those. So again, I may have to jump back in and have a look at those when I get the chance.
When Streak missiles were added to MechWarrior Online, people went absolutely nuts with them for weeks. There was barely a light mech left alive in matches as mechs ruthlessly hunted them down. Don't feel sorry for them though, because up until that point, the netcode was so rough that hitting a light mech with any weapon was entirely luck and had little to do with aiming at where your computer told you the mech was on.
Oh, and the fact that for a long time, there was this one build for MechWarrior Online that you could put about 8 rocket launcher 20s into a javelin and then just walk right behind an assault mech, empty the tubes, and then that was it. That was it. Your assault mech just absolutely died. And it infuriated both teams because you're now essentially a paperweight for the entire match. So first off, you better not miss. Second off, well, I guess you're going to go capture points because that's really about it. That's all you can really do. So, yeah, it's kind of rough on that front. So again, if you're a light mech, you might get picked on a little bit more on that front, but...
Screen. I'm not one to wish harm on people, but you spider pilots out there, ooh, you're really pushing it. In one of those rare occasions in tabletop Battletech, a new piece of technology, Streak SRMs, actually make the game more streamlined, as all you have to do is make your original 2-hit roll. There's no need to roll for the cluster hits table, as all the missiles are guaranteed hits. If the 2-hit roll is unsuccessful, no missiles are launched, and you don't generate any heat. This guarantee can be impacted by the Angel ECM bubbles, which revert your streak missiles to behaving like regular SRMs, requiring a roll on the cluster hits table. As far as specialty munitions go, there is some overlap with the LRMs, which we discussed in the previous video. Fragmentation SRMs are great for wiping out groups of infantry through the dispersal of metal shards. A standard fragmentation SRM would do 4 damage to a group of infantry, an SRM 6 would do 24 damage. That'd be enough to wipe out the standard infantry unit. Tear gas SRMs are used to disperse gas into crowds of people, though they only have a very limited possible battlefield use. There are harpoon SRMs, but they're not as cool as they sound. They're literally designed to spear sea creatures and wouldn't work on mechs or vehicles with armor.
Not with that attitude, it doesn't. Is it, you know, it's so sad that we never get some of these like interesting one-off ideas for like the video games, because again, it's supposed to be a little bit more streamlined, kind of like Mech Assault was, or the Sega Genesis version of MechWarrior 2. It's supposed to be very arcadey and streamlined to try to get people into the pipeline, and then you kind of push them towards Battletech or tabletop, whichever one fits your
Sad,
budget.
I know. My favorite specialty SRM round is the Inferno missile. Instead of a high explosive, the Inferno round carries a chemical gel mixture which showers the target and then ignites. The goal is to either incinerate the target, in the case of infantry, small vehicles, and buildings, or to drive the heat up on a vehicle or battle mech to the point at which it cannot function. Inferno missiles don't do any direct damage to the battle mech, but can damage buildings and infantry based upon rules found in the Total War sourcebook. While popular amongst infantry and small vehicle weapon systems, Infernos are not typically carried on battle mechs because of the danger they pose with a higher probability of ammunition explosions. If a mech carrying Inferno ammunition does suffer from an ammo explosion in that location, that could easily add up enough heat to shut the mech down.
Very, very correct on that one. I've had that happen multiple times. It's not particularly a good time when you carry Infernos anyways. When you go to fire a lot of those Inferno SRMs in the first place. The ammo exploding is just kind of like the cherry on top in this particular instance.
Mechs and vehicles also have to watch their running heat, as the hotter you are, the more likely the Inferno rounds can combust, even without a critical hit.
Oh shoot. So you don't even have the luxury of just sitting there running up your heat and then just going, oh, well, it might be okay. No, that thing might just actually combust in of itself. Yeah, it's a good thing that I switched away from Inferno SRMs a long time ago.
For every Inferno missile that hits its target, the target's heat level must go up by 2 points during the heat phase of the turn in which the Infernos hit. This additional heat lasts for 1 turn. Now, I have been known to use Infernos before, typically with infantry and battle armor, and a coordinated strike from multiple weapon systems can effectively take a dangerous mech out of action for long enough that it makes a difference. One of my favorite uses of elemental battle armor is to give them Inferno rounds in their SRM2s and send them hopping towards the nearest hotbox enemy mech. It's a relatively modest investment to potentially shut down a big lasboat mech for multiple turns. Plus, it forces them to have to focus fire on the elementals, which, even if successfully killed off, means fire that isn't directed at your battle mechs. Thanks.
Yeah, no, the elementals are definitely a decent way to keep some of your mechs alive. Although I've never really understood the elementals that much in the MechWarrior games. It wasn't until I started like getting into like Battletech and tabletop adjacent material that I realized that the elementals are actually kind of scary. So you can hop up onto your mech and start absolutely trying to pull you out of the mech. And in this particular instance, you can just fry a mech like an oven. So that's cool. Yeah, they seem to be a lot more scary than even some of the battle mechs in general. Used in combination, to be completely fair.
One of my favorite Battletech moments from the novels is from Decision at Thunder Rift, when Grayson Carlisle has used
a book I have bought, but unfortunately I haven't been able to read just yet. I would love to get an actual like paperback copy of it. Those are my favorite. Actually having a book to read instead of like, I'm gonna sit here and try to read on this iPad or phone. It's just like, give me a paperback book any day. I'm cementing my status as an auntie, but like paperbacks are so much better than electronic. Because if a company wants to come and take my paperback, they're gonna have to show up at my door, and you know what? I might have a few questions to them about downgrading their quality, but anywho.
Used his conventional infantry forces to corner a locust in an alleyway. Rather than destroying the mech, Carlisle threatened the mech warrior with an Inferno launch against her already overheated mech. The prospect of being incinerated in her mech led her to surrender, which, as you might know if you've read the novel, is very fortuitous for Carlisle and the mech warrior. Good times. I put out the call for favorite SRM-equipped mechs and received a flurry of great ones. From the Kentaro, Jenner D, Warhammer, and even the Noble Commando, SRMs can add a little extra punch. The Hatamoto Chi is a really fun mech with 2 PPCs backed up with dual SRM-6s for a little hello to any target that wanders too close. Even some of the bigger mechs like the Atlas, Highlander, and Cyclops have at least one SRM on board. While not necessarily my personal go-to for weapon systems, I can definitely respect the SRM for what it can do. I hope you can as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support the creation of more Battletech content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and even share the video with others who might appreciate it. Big thanks to the Ko-Fi supporters, you're awesome. If you want to see more, check out the Why We Love LRMs video linked above. Now go out and make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.
Absolutely. I love this Battletech or battle suit picture. Over here is so cute. But yeah, the SRMs make for a really good like brawling mech. I think I need to experiment more with the straight SRMs, and Infernos have gotten a little bit more scary in my book. They're definitely a black magic that I've learned to respect, but not necessarily throw out the window altogether. They're definitely good. It's just they take a little bit more care. They need a little bit more care than your standard SRM systems or any other weapon system for that matter. But the video will be linked in the description and the card if you want to go and support Mech Frog. You absolutely should, by the way. They make excellent content. But with that, this has been Call Sign Annika. Signing out.